Hey everybody, Mark DiSalvo here. Welcome to the DiSalvo Performance Hour. Thank you for downloading another week. Appreciate it. Today we have a really cool guest. He's a close friend of mine that I've gotten to know a lot over the years. He's been a great advisor to me, both in business, particularly in the business of fitness and martial arts. He owns a very successful martial arts school in New Jersey, not too far from Trenton. I believe it's Ewing, New Jersey. It's called Budo Martial Arts. He teaches Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu there. He's also, like many of our guests, just a veteran of the East Coast MMA scene. He had a lot of fights going back a lot of years as he gets into, crossed paths with some really interesting folks. So if you're into that kind of thing, I think you're really going to enjoy this podcast. He ended up even interviewing me quite a bit at the end. He asked me a lot of questions. Some of his followers on Instagram chimed in and asked a few. So we get into some interesting topics. It's really kind of all over the place. But if you enjoy jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts, strength and conditioning, and just decent life advice, I think you're going to like this. He's a really great guy, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did and as much as I enjoy his company. Listen up, enjoy. Charlie Vinch, everybody. So basically, one of the big reasons I wanted to have you here is because I think a lot of people who listen, like, first of all, are like curious people, whether they're athletes, casual athletes, recreational, like informed trainees. And then like the other half are other people who own businesses, trainers, martial artists, or people who make a living in this kind of thing from martial arts. And one thing that I'm very lucky to have in my circle are a lot of people like yourself who own schools, are really great martial artists, great people moreover, but also are always interested in many things. Like you have a lot of interests. You take a lot of agency in your how you conduct business, and you always want to be better at it. And I think like for clients, I mean, people who are your clients, they understand that, or they can smell it on you almost. And so I like to expose people like yourself to people on podcasts. That's a big reason why I wanted to have you on. But how did you get your start in even thinking, I'm going to make money, or I'm going to make fitness and martial arts my business?
How did I start to believe that I'm going to make money in the fitness / martial arts industry? Well, martial arts was always something that I really enjoyed doing growing up. And I knew from the first day that I did martial arts that I wanted to do it for the rest of my life.
Oh, awesome.
But how I wanted to do it for the rest of my life, I didn't know.
Right.
I know that I wanted to fight. That was my first priority, was competing.
Well, so is this, when you say fight, you knew you wanted to fight MMA, or you wanted to do like kickboxing or something?
Yeah, anything.
Anything, got it.
Kickboxing,
okay.
Boxing,
yeah.
MMA.
How old were you?
13, 14.
Oh, okay, so this started young.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you now?
35.
35. Okay, wow. So you really knew young. That's awesome. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's great. So when you kind of had that, what do you call it? Pollination, or that moment, like, okay, or maybe it was a series of moments that led up to it. Like, what was the first step? Did you go and seek out, like, what martial art did you start with?
The first martial art I started with was Jeet Kune Do.
Oh, nice.
JKD.
Yeah.
Which is Bruce Lee's fighting method.
Right.
And I'm really happy to have done that first, because it's a martial art that's very open to other martial arts.
I'd say it's very open-minded.
It's very open-minded. Use no way as a way.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
And Bruce Lee's, be like water, adapt.
Right.
And my first martial arts instructor, Rick Tucci, who is currently, I assume still, under Dan Inosanto, who was directly under Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So, he had a very close relationship with Dan. I think he still does to this day.
Right.
And he would always make great parallels. Like, you can use this for this, you can use this for this. And we were mixing the takedowns and the punches and the get back up and the defense and the offense constantly with like, basically it was like, I was doing like MMA.
Right.
From an early start.
Right.
So it was really good to be so exposed to such an open martial art in the beginning that I wasn't, stuck in one kind of like realm of martial arts of like we do just this.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so, how did you find jiu-jitsu?
So I found,
Because you are a jiu-jitsu black belt for the people who might be listening
Yes.
and don't know. Yes.
I found jiu-jitsu through Rick because he was a blue belt at the time. And again, we're going back when I was 13. So I'm 35 now. So this is, how long ago was that? I'm bad at math.
22 years.
22 years ago.
Yeah.
So 22 years
13,
ago.
13, yeah.
He was a blue belt under, I believe it was Higan Machado.
Yeah.
And we would do gi jiu-jitsu once a week at his studio.
Oh, that's awesome.
We also...
You're talking about Rick.
That's right, under Rick,
yeah.
under Rick Tucci.
Rick Tucci, okay, gotcha.
We would also do CSW under Eric Paulson, which is combat submission wrestling.
Right, I was just going to say,
strikes.
Yeah. Right.
So I would do that once a week also. He had his curriculum set up where you would do JKD, I think he had like every day of the week, and then you had jiu-jitsu once a week, and then you had CSW like twice a week.
Right.
So you could go to all of these different classes and really become a well-rounded fighter.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Was this like the early days of the UFC or like what
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
22 years ago.
The concept of how he would have even came up with this, do you think that comes from mixed martial arts or just wanting to be a complete fighter? Because mixed martial arts was like barely a thing back then.
Sure.
Or Valley Tudo maybe he knew about and these types of things. I don't know.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder. I think he was really going off Bruce Lee's philosophy more than anything.
Right.
Like he's still, I believe, and was heavily influenced through Bruce Lee and being a well-rounded fighter, like not being so stuck in one thing, like use it all.
Right.
Use it all.
Right.
Become a well-rounded martial artist.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so flashing forward from there, coming up. So you at one point fought MMA?
Yes.
Yes. So that was like at what age?
My first MMA fight was in like 2006.
Okay. Oh wow. So yeah, okay. And then how long did that go on for?
So I fought for like a couple years. I had four fights.
Right.
We would do in-house tournaments for kickboxing and boxing before I did MMA.
Right.
And then I did some grappling tournaments before I did, an MMA tournament.
Right.
Actually, my first grappling tournament was here in New York City at a gym. Oh, I don't even know the name of the gym.
Oh really? Where was it?
Maybe New York Sanda?
Yeah, it's actually.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, there is a place up the street. It's like 36th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it by the hot dog place?
I don't know. There's 1,000 hot dog places
what
in
is
town.
What is the popular hot dog place here in New York City?
I mean, you mean like the carts? Or
No.
Oh, I don't know.
It's like...
Oh, Papaya Dog or one of those places?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember it was right by there.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it was right by there. I believe that was the name of the place. And I'll have to ask Rob Garino.
Okay.
Rob Garino was my first mixed martial arts coach.
Right.
And he told me about this, but maybe it was Rhino, New York. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
I'll ask him.
Yeah. Well, there's a place, New York Sanda, and actually...
Is it grappling there?
So there was for a long time. I don't know what they do now.
22 years?
Well, no. So Dan Koval, I don't know if you're familiar with Dan.
No.
Dan's one of these guys, judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Okay.
Like great American Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, just like overall really awesome guy, really awesome at Jiu-Jitsu. And he had his program there for a long time. He actually just moved it like less than a year ago from Sanda to, he's doing it at Phil Nurse's place,
Oh,
the
cool.
Watt. Yeah, so
Nice.
that's so the jiu-jitsu program there is his. So it used to be at Sanda. So like that was up until like not just like a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah. So if you're listening to this is like a very this is something that I kind of love about martial arts and even the sport of MMA and as it developed is that it's so recent and the growth is so exponential that people are around and still like at an age where it's not like people are old men or old women. It's like this all happened, these like old glory days stories. They all happened like not that long ago.
Yeah.
Like 20 years. That's like nothing.
Yep.
And there's so many people out there that are like that or part of it, especially on the East Coast. And like that's why, I always love hearing these stories. I always love hearing how people get started, like kind of where they came from, because to me it sort of indicates like where they're going, or how it's told me something about their trajectory, and I get it, you know, like it makes me understand them on a deeper level. So I love having these conversations.
It was, so the way that it was set up was, Rob told me, he goes, you have to be there, you know, at 9 o'clock for the weigh-ins, and you have to be this weight. So like, I remember like I was, my girlfriend at the time, she was like, helping me cut weight, or more like helping me not eat food.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to do it then.
Right,
you know?
right.
I was like, I won't eat anything for like 24 hours or whatever.
Right.
So we got there, we waited. There was a ton of people there. There was like a really good amount of people there. And then there was somebody or a couple people who were like, one guy was lighter than me, but he was a purple belt. And then the other guy who was the same weight as me was a little bit older. And we made like a round robin. So I got like, you know, 3 or 4 matches. Actually, it's on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
It's on YouTube. If you Google my name, you can watch it. The match was set up in a ring. In a boxing ring.
Yeah.
We had a grappling match in a boxing ring.
Oh my God. Well, it's not the same.
Don't ask me why.
Yeah, it's not even the same like pliability.
No, and when you hit the ground, it was like boom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like WWE, like the sound effects.
Yeah. I remember, I think my first match or my second match, I didn't even have a shirt on. I think it like ripped. I didn't have a rash guard then. Like we're going back like 15 years ago, because I was like in my 20s. So, you know, 15, 16 years ago, I don't even think we had rash guards. I had like a pair of shorts, and I had a t-shirt, and then it ripped, and then I had to take it off, and we got some grappling in, man, and then I won a medal after. They gave me a medal after.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, that's always funny. That's the medals that they give out after at some of these places.
It was so cool though, man.
Oh, it is. You walk out of there like, fuck yeah, look at this. Look what I did today. Yeah. That's awesome. So how did that go from there? Because you trained with some interesting people in MMA. So who was it specifically? Where did you go? Because I know you did a little bit of traveling. Is that right? Like you went to Philly or? Yeah. Okay.
Do you want me to go like who I've trained with before in my life?
Or just, yeah, sure, go for it. Yeah.
I'll try to go in order. So first was Rick Tucci, then I started boxing in Trenton, New Jersey, with 2 Olympians who used to be Olympians when they were younger. It was Sammy and Barry Goss. They were brothers, and they were Olympians. I believe they were both gold medalists in the Olympics. And they had a gym in Center City, Trenton, and it was at the YMCA. So I would go there and box with them, and then I'm kind of like, I want to like do some more. Like I like the boxing, I really enjoy it. We did some in-house tournaments. I really want to go back to like kickboxing. So then from there, I transitioned back to Rick's place, and then after Rick's place, I went to Rhino Fight Team, which is in Toms River, New Jersey. Toms River, New Jersey. Rob Garino was the owner of Rhino Fight Team. And like back then, it was the who's who of MMA. Everybody would go there.
I was gonna say
everybody would go there.
Yeah, that's familiar. And then Toms River is also where Frankie Edgar's from.
So I believe, don't quote me on this. I believe he started with Rob.
Oh wow.
I could be wrong. But I know that he was there at one point. The guys that I was training with when I was there were Tom Galicchio, who was on The Ultimate Fighter. Kevin Roddy, Brendan Barrett. There's another guy named Jose Rodriguez. There was another guy named Alexis. I think his name's Alexis. This is so long ago, man. My friend Eric Purcell, my friend Brett Perchulik.
Didn't you have was it Alan Belcher at one point you came with?
That's like going ahead. You're going too far ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're going too far ahead. So I trained with those guys for a while, and they really helped me get my feet wet in the MMA the MMA realm. And then from Rob's place, I went to Ricardo Almeida's.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I went and trained with him, the MMA team, and his jiu-jitsu. And then from there, I made a move to... right when I was training with Ricardo, I was also training at Satan Gym with Rami Abraham.
I've heard of that.
The longest active Northeast, or maybe a North American Muay Thai fighter.
Wow.
I think he has like 200 fights.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's like not even a lot for those guys.
Oh my God. For American, yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there I went to Philadelphia and now currently train with Rick Migliarese and Phil Migliarese, who are, Phil is a 6th degree black belt under Helson Gracie, and I still, represent Rami as much as I can, and
Right.
I appreciate his Muay Thai. So he does some seminars at my place. And then before that, I did go out to Alabama for a training camp / seminar and trained with Duke Rufus and Alan Belcher
Got it.
at their gym there.
Got it. That's
I'm
awesome.
sure I've missed some other people too.
Yeah.
Those are like the main.
Well, so one of the reasons, there are many, but one of the reasons I wanted to have you on too is because you've crossed paths with so many different people. You had so much intersection. I mean, even the way you and I met was when I was working with Steve Maxwell. He was actually in New York doing a seminar at Dan Anderson's place, Anderson's Martial Arts, and you came out. And one thing I've always really enjoyed about you is that you, like I said to you earlier, you're very friendly, and you'll just start talking, and you feel like I've known you forever, kind of thing. Like, it was one of those things. And I remember leaving the seminar, and then you and I were walking and talking, and I was like, I didn't even realize we were still hanging out and talking, and we're all like, halfway up, like through Soho at this point. And it's just a very familiar feeling. So, knowing that you've been involved with so many different camps, so many different teachers, so many different people, because I know maybe some people listening, they might have turned it off by now because they're like, I don't know any of these MMA people. Yeah, whatever. But the point is that I think people like yourself I think this sport is one that it's like a small world, but it's also it's very, what's the word? I lost my train of thought. But the point is that you've been around. You've seen a lot of really cool stuff. Yeah. So at what point in all of that did you say to yourself, I want to now open a business, or I want to either get out of fighting, or did you want to still fight and have a school? Because that's something that comes up a lot with guys. They want to still fight, but they're like, well, I guess the only way I can make money is open a gym. And opening a gym is a whole headache and a half of its own. It's a different world. They're not inherently compatible. They can be, but they typically are not. So let's steer things more that way.
So this was not even on my radar to be a gym owner until I incurred my first hip injury. So when I was living in Philadelphia, training with the Migliarese Brothers and actively pursuing fighting MMA,
right,
I had my first hip labrum tear. On my I believe it was my right side or my left side, I can't remember.
Right.
And it kind of just put the brakes on everything. I mean, before the injury, my whole thing was to be the best MMA fighter. Right. That was it. That was it. That was it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I was gonna make money. That's how I'm gonna be in the UFC. I'm gonna.
Right.
That I'm pursuing that as a young 22-year-old or whatever, 23-year-old. Right. That's what I want to do. Right. And then I got this horrible hip injury, and then it basically just slowed me down. And I had to start thinking okay, now what are you going to do now? Right. And my friend Eric Purcell, who owns NPR Endurance, he asked me, he said, do you want to come, would you like to come teach Muay Thai? At the time, I was also teaching Muay Thai at Balance Jiu-Jitsu. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I started to notice while I was teaching how much I enjoyed it. Yeah. Because when you're a fighter, or you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, or you're an athlete, let's just say athlete, because I hate saying just you're a fighter, you have to be this. When you're an athlete, you have to be selfish. Yes. And anybody who tells you different, I don't believe that they are the best athlete. John Jones talks about it. He has to be selfish with his time and his training, and that's how you get good. Yeah. I mean, you have to be selfish so you can be the best person that you can be, right? So I was no longer being selfish. Right. And I had to go, I really enjoy training people. Wow. Yeah. Maybe I enjoy this more than something for myself. And I really like to give. I'm a giver. Right. And I really enjoyed more seeing people get something out of it than I did giving something to myself.
Right. See, that's beautiful, because if people have been listening to my podcast, I have probably, going back, every single guest who deals with athletes has said some version of exactly what you just said. That we talked about it last time with Rich Van Houten, with Ben Velasquez, another guest, he's the one that like put it into play, is that he said, you know, I've always found that with athletes that to be the best athlete, you have to be a little selfish, and to be the best coach, you have to be a little selfless.
Yeah,
a lot of
sure.
And that was how he summed it up. We talked about this last episode, and then you just gave your perspective. So it's like it's threes, people. It's threes. So it has to be like it. You know, there's a law there. It's very true. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I felt like for me when I grew up playing hockey. Mm-hmm. People have heard this story, but I grew up playing hockey, and I was never told. And this is the funny thing. Like with hockey, I just loved playing. And I was never told, like, you can't come back. It was literally just like, I'd be on these really competitive travel teams, but it was always like, go to tryouts. There was one year I didn't make a team, but I went to the next competing organization, made their team. But eventually I got to a point where I could see people were catching up, because I was kind of an early puberty kid. So I was faster, bigger than everybody.
Nice.
And then everybody caught up to me, and then they started exceeding me, but I could still skate with them, but I had no puck handling skills. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt. So that was in my head, was like, how do I fix this? So I became very interested in problem solving. And by that time, like in my personal life, my family and I, we had moved so much that it started, and we moved to places where there were no hockey organizations and there really just wasn't anything to do. So I was playing rec leagues and whatever, and just kind of doing it for fun. And at that point, if you wanted to make a career in it, it was over. Like the pin was in it. Maybe I could have done more to push that, but either way, I just became obsessed with things I couldn't do and why that was. And then long story short is in that search, I got to a point where I realized that in like wanting to coach, or like in thinking like, hey, I might be good at coaching, or I might be good, because I started figuring out like the holes in my game. And like the people who did it really well, I'd be like, wow, if you took that guy's skill and like put him on this, or,
yep.
you know, if you did that, like, wow, that could really work. Or like if you could take like a guy like me, I'd be perfect on the third line, because I could be the grinder line, because I can keep up with all the guys who skate fast. But I mean, I can just hack away at them. Like I can't actually do anything, but like I can keep up with them. And anyway, this is the long way of saying I liked problem solving, and I liked all of these things. And what I really got into in that process and in interacting with people is I really realized I really like coaching. I really like being around people. Like,
yeah.
The athlete dream was like dead, like kind of dead on arrival, but it was kind of like, it didn't mean that I couldn't be involved with it. You know what I mean? And I never accepted that, you know, that like, oh, you just because you're not an athlete, you can't be involved. I was like, no, there's a place for everyone, you know, if you want to be here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my story. I didn't mean to bogart yours.
No,
yeah,
that's my first time hearing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah. So it's that, you know, that's like one of the thoughts that was going on that whole time, and I got really interested in strength and conditioning because I remember going in the gym the first time and just being like completely enamored, and my mom could see that I was enamored with it, and she was just like. And she figured out a way to like get me to go, because I was like 12, and this is like the early 90s, and like they didn't want kids in the gym. This wasn't like a normal thing. So she was like, she talked to one of the trainers who was his bodybuilder, and he had like pictures on the wall of him with the spray tan on, like at the local show. Yeah, super cool dude. And she would like set up this thing where I could go and train with him like a couple times a week at the gym, and he taught me everything. Like he taught me everything, my early everything, like how to use the Nautilus machines, barbells, dumbbells, everything. And it was much more with a bodybuilding thing in mind, but it was something I was not good at. Like it was hard for me, but I liked that. I've always been really attracted to things that were really difficult, like things I could not do. And I was like, I understood at that age that athletes trained, and that athletes were in, you know, they'd go to the gym to be better on the field or on the ice or whatever, but I didn't know how they did it or why, like what they were actually doing. But I was like, oh, there's a key here. I bet you there's something here. And I suddenly just got more obsessed with the weight room, like as a teenager, to the point where I almost didn't care about hockey anymore by the time I was like 16, 17. I was just like, yeah, I could go play, but I kind of want to go to the gym. You know, like I kind of think there's something there. There was some, and then, you know, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but the point is that for me, the interesting thing was, like I was saying, the carryover, or like that point where it was like, oh, this could be really good for this, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah. No, of course.
Yeah. So then that was when I realized, I was like, I could probably figure out this coaching thing. Yeah.
I think there's a natural flow to life.
Yeah.
That like, you can't force something to happen.
Right.
And if you've ever read any of like Michael Singer's stuff, have you ever read
His name's so
the
familiar.
Surrender Experiment?
No, I've never read any of his stuff, but that name sounds very familiar. Yeah.
So he talks about it.
Right.
It's not what your mind is telling you.
Right.
It's actually what's happening right now. Like it doesn't matter what's happening.
Right.
You just accept that it is happening.
Right.
And you deal with what is actually happening.
Right. Exactly.
So like I had a hip labrum tear. I accepted that I couldn't do martial arts at that point, and I went through 2 crazy major surgeries.
Right. I remember you telling me.
So no matter how much I wanted to force that to be healed and ready to train, it was happening the way it was happening.
Right.
So I needed to accept that was happening, and what can I do while accepting that?
Yeah.
So you've accepted, okay, I stopped playing the sport, but now life has pushed me in this direction.
Right.
And there's like a natural flow to things. Right?
Definitely. Absolutely. I think...
I know that sounds like woo-woo and hippy-dippy, but
no,
I really believe that, man.
No, I do too.
Really, really do. Have you ever seen birds fly in a flock?
Well, yeah, ducks, all different kinds. But yeah.
When they pick up off the ground, how they sequence each other.
Right.
Do you think they talk to each other? They're going, no, you go right. No, I go left.
No, it's probably in their DNA. Yeah.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
So there's a flow to it.
Right.
Okay? And
exactly.
I do believe deep down inside there's a flow to everybody's life.
Right.
And sometimes it takes a little bit to find, but once you find it, it's like, and you're in that flow.
Yeah.
It's like magic.
I think you have to learn how to listen almost. Yeah.
You do. You got to get silent.
Yeah. Because it is going to push you there. Like there's so many times where I've been so stubborn, and that's why I understand like really competitive athletes, because I get it. I have that stubbornness. I totally get it. But those times where I had to just kind of shut up and listen and learn how to do that were the times that it's like you could be taken by the wind, to use your analogy. You're just like, oh, no, this is where I'm being steered. And, the more you fight things, sometimes the harder it makes it, I think. Yeah, and I think that's a hard lesson to learn. So it sounds like you were able to pick up on that a bit. Like
I had no choice.
Yeah.
So it put, like, the surgeries, I talk about this, like, on every podcast.
That's okay.
The surgeries put me to a point. Phil Migliarese has a very similar story, and we talk about it all the time. The surgery put me to a point where I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. I had both of my hips done, major surgery.
Right.
I have no time but to think, but to be silent. I could have chose to let my mind just take over and try to force the issue, but like it really slows you down. Like when you have a serious injury, that you can't walk, or maybe you can't move your arms, or like you can't move your neck, or maybe you're paralyzed, like God forbid you're paralyzed. Anything like that, it really slows your mind down, because you can't start jumping to other conclusions as good. You have to be in that present moment. You're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Can I curse?
Yeah, of course.
You're like, fuck, I can't move. Oh my God. Okay, like this is what it is.
Right. It's why you lose the ability to sort of, because you have to think so much about what's going on in front of you. It's like things will tend to, what do you call it? There's like a domino effect. Like if you lose the ability to walk properly, that means that there's probably like 3 other things you didn't anticipate that go along with that. And that's where the deterioration, I think, happens a lot,
Sure. And you know that from your training, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I see it a lot. Early in my, like, hockey kind of messed up my body a lot. Like, it's a really weird sport.
But
like,
jiu-jitsu not.
Yeah, I know, jiu-jitsu too, yeah. Well, exactly. But, what's funny is that, like, I see a lot of guys who are around our age who had like really like roaring 20s, to use like the whatever term you want to use, that these guys, like powerlifter friends of mine, like who had amazing totals in their 20s, or just like were really strong competitors either in jiu-jitsu, MMA, just other sports, and they get to their 30s and they might have had a significant injury, an ACL tear, or like something happened, and it caused them to think a little bit more meaningfully about their movement. I encountered hundreds of these people when I worked with Steve. Tons of people.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's like...
Because Steve knows everybody.
Exactly.
And he's in, how old is Steve?
60... I don't want to age him prematurely. 66 or 67.
Right, so 66, 67.
Yeah.
He looks like he's 35 or 30. He's ripped. He's got abs. So Steve knows people that he trained with when he was in his 30s.
Yeah.
And then he knows people from the jiu-jitsu world who are in their 30s or 20s or, in their warring 20s, as you would say.
Right.
And he's seen it already. So he's like, this is what you need to be doing.
Right.
Like, I've been there and I've done it. And I got the t-shirt and I already came back 3 times.
Right, exactly. So early in my training career, even just on myself, like before I even had clients, like people would give me these powerlifting programs. I would read on T Nation, which is a website I still love to this day. Like the best coaches, strength coaches, like Poliquin used to write for it, like everybody, Christian Thibodeau, like just tons, even going back farther. Mm-hmm. They'd give these great workout splits and I'd go to the gym and I'd do them and I'd be like, I wouldn't have progress or something would hurt or I just couldn't complete it right. I was like, man, what's going on? And I realized how jacked up my body was. So like I had to answer those that dinner bell a lot sooner than a lot of my friends did and like peers did. And I had to take that sort of journey like in my early 20s to like really learn how to sort of heal myself, for a lack of a better term. Like I had to learn corrective exercise. I had to learn how to meditate. I had to learn more flexibility, mobility protocols. I had to learn a lot more about anatomy and when this muscle is out of whack, that this antagonist muscle can also be. I had to really educate myself. And that led me to people like Paul Chek. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before. Mm-hmm. He's kind of like, if there was like a godfather of like functional fitness, it's probably him.
Really?
And then he, because he was very big on like the Swiss ball, so like stability training and things like that. But also he's another guy like Steve, like 60 something, like ripped, like doesn't look a day over 40.
Wow.
Like one of those guys.
Good for him.
Just incredibly smart. Like he was an advisor, if I'm not mistaken, to the Bulls in the 90s when they were winning championships,
cool.
Like as a strength coach and whatnot. Anyway, point is like his stuff as he got older was like all what he calls working in, which was like doing exercises and protocols to like kind of help give you more vitality. So not to go and rob you of strength and learn how to know when you have that vitality.
Yeah.
So I did so much of his stuff and tons of it. I never met the guy, but I still to this day have never met him. And it helped me a lot. And then it's kind of like, what's that old saying? Like when the student is ready, the teacher will present himself.
Yeah.
Slowly started building myself up more so I could like work out hard like one day a week and not feel like just jacked from it. Because like I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast. This is like my early 20s. Like this is what most people happens to them in their 30s or early 40s.
Sure.
This happened to me in my 20s and early 20s. And so
I think it does happen to people in their early 20s.
It does. No one talks about it though. And so the point is that at that, and I'm skipping a lot, but that was when Steve popped up. I said, hey, you know what? I've always wanted to train jiu-jitsu. This thing that I've seen and heard about since I was like a kid, but I was always a little bit afraid of, like this is like when I was 26, I guess, because like, I had a lot of concussions in hockey. I was very sensitive about my neck. I was very like, my posture was very weird, like just lots of stuff like that from playing hockey and just, I could go on all day about that stuff. But I finally, through doing all these different protocols, working with a great friend of mine who I did a podcast with for a long time, Froylin Sanchez, he's a great trainer in New York. Through working with him and like going on this discovery journey of like how to rehabilitate myself, basically, I started training with kettlebells. I started getting into jiu-jitsu. I started slowly getting back into little barbell sports here and there. And then at that point, we were doing a podcast, and it was like, "Hey, we should interview this guy, Steve Maxwell. He's like really into he's really into jiu-jitsu, kettlebells, and mobility. And he was just on this or that other podcast. Like he sounds like a good interview." And I emailed him. We called him up. We recorded the interview. And then afterwards, him and I just stayed in touch, like, because it was clear that we got along.
Yeah.
And like he was still traveling at that point, like different city every week. And I just get these emails from Steve, like, "Hey, how's your jiu-jitsu? Hey, how's this?" And then we just became friends.
He's great, man.
Yeah.
I love Steve.
And so at that point, through training with him, it was kind of like, Steve's really underrated, I think, in how good he is at like his stability protocols. He doesn't call them that, which
we talked about that.
Yeah, he's very underrated in like how, like,
book savvy.
But yeah, people I think sometimes look at him as the kettlebell guy or now as like the isometrics guy, but Steve is a phenomenal coach, and he's also in his isometrics and his kettlebells and the way he trains jiu-jitsu. It will get you, if you are in pain, he'll or if you feel like you're always weak in a certain area, he'll figure it out and fix it. It might not always be the thing that the study or whatever says, but he has this just weird way about him that all great coaches do. Experience. He can pick it out, and like if you want to use the books, the book terms, it's stability. He knows how to just make you more solid. And by the time I was done training with him, I felt really solid, and I was really ready to like get back to training like I always did or wanted to when I was a teenager. And now I'm in my 30s and I'm as strong as I've ever been, stronger in fact. Like the way I train now, I don't take it for granted. I would have never been able to train like this at a certain point in my 20s, like going to jiu-jitsu 3-4 days a week, being able to power lift and do all these other things, another 4, like run a business. Like it's like you had, to your point, there was like the wind had to sort of take me in a place, and I had to learn how to be ready for that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're suddenly ready, and then not suddenly, it's just you look back behind you like, wow, look at all this stuff, and it's like
the flow happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
It happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't force it.
No, exactly. And anytime I tried things, they were miserable.
It's weird.
Yeah.
We have to like ask somebody in, I don't know, physics or biochem, something, to ask them what's the correct term for trying to force something and it not working, and relaxing and letting it flow, and that it does happen better. I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, there's a lot of perspectives for that, I'm sure. So I know we have a lot of, because you put up on your Instagram questions people wanted to ask us. So we'll get to that in a second. So I'm just teasing people, but I want to ask you though now about what you do now. Because now that I've talked a lot, I just apologize to everybody listening.
No, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
This is a question that I get from, students or past students, or even maybe newer students who are going to come into my school who are a little bit older. They ask me, or they tell me, I can't do jiu-jitsu because of my back, my hip, my shoulder, my elbow, and I'm not a physical therapist, and I am not a strength and conditioning coach. I don't know anything about it, and I tell them, I'm like, listen, you need to go see a professional, and ask them what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, do you know what they tell me?
What's that?
I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you shouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu then if you're hurt. Like,
exactly.
If you're hurt, right? Why would you come in and hurt yourself more, and then not do anything to fix what was kind of hurting? So what do you tell people who are like, my career ended, I have a rib injury, or my career's ended, I have a labrum tear, or my career is injured because I have an elbow thing, or I hear, mostly from people my age, or I went to high school with, I'm like, dude, you should come to my studio and do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Oh, I got this back problem. Right. I'm like, come on, man.
I think when you encounter those, you might be hearing people like throwing up like resistance, and it's just the first thing. So like there's of course people who do have things that you have to really work around, like true back problems or true knee problems, neck, etc. But then there's also people who are like, I bent down one too many times to like pick up something in my garage, and I kind of hurt my back a little, and like that's a bad excuse if you're that person, you know what I mean? But if you're a person that like maybe was in a car accident, or like maybe had some type of trauma, to like physical or otherwise, then you should definitely consult a professional first. A lot of times, just
is there a fix for I don't want to say is there a fix for these people? I'm like lumping them into something, like I don't want to say like the injured people over here, the non-injured people over here. How long does somebody really have to dig at it and find somebody before they're like, this is working for me? I feel like when I hear people talk about it, they're like, I went to physical therapy for 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, your shoulder's been hurting for like a year. You can't go to physical therapy for 2 weeks and think it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, maybe sometimes you can though. See, that's the other thing is that sometimes I can use personal experience here. I worked the first 4 years that DiSalvo Performance Training was a business. It was inside of a physical therapy clinic.
Oh, awesome! So you got hands-on.
Yeah. So I rented space from a physical therapist downtown. Reset Physical Therapy, still a great place. I refer people there all the time. They basically, when you're in physical therapy, one big thing besides the performance versus physical wellness, like contrast between strength and conditioning and physical therapy, one thing that contrasts, in my opinion, fitness or strength and conditioning from physical therapy also is that in physical therapy you're dealing with people who are in pain or trying to get out of pain, versus strength and conditioning the assumption is that you are relatively healthy and can participate. And you've been in pain before, and you know where your brain goes when you're in pain. I know that when I was trying to get into jiu-jitsu, and I was having a lot of rib pain early on, and it used to scare me because I associated it with the pain I had from playing hockey, like some of the bad checks and open ice hits I had taken that like had lasting effects.
I thought it was like internal damage.
Yeah, I was like, your mind wanders. But here's the thing: back then, I wasn't qualified to even let my mind wander. I didn't know shit from shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, excellent point. You're playing Dr. Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like now, even now. I'm really smart, and I'm smart enough to know what I don't know, but I also am confident in what I do know. So there's sometimes when I will tweak something at jiu-jitsu or otherwise, and I'll say, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I'm not going to worry about it for a few days, and usually it goes away.
It resolves.
But if something happens that I'm a little unsure of, and I'm like, well, normally XYZ would feel like this. That's when I call up my friend Peter at Reset. That's when I have another friend, Evelyn. She's a physical therapist too. I'll call her up. I'll be like, hey, what's going on when this happens?
Oh, cool.
Cool. But the reason I tell all that is that if you're that person who's unsure about starting, you should probably like go to a physical therapist, because they're probably going to be more empowering than they will restrictive.
Yeah.
So in other words, they'll tell you point blank, like, yeah, you might have a problem with the shoulder right now, but actually, you know what? Let's give this like 3 to 4 weeks, and then I think you might be good to like give it a crack. Now that doesn't mean you're going to go and compete in mundials like your first week. It means that you're going to go to jiu-jitsu, you're going to do the warm-ups, you're going to probably learn basic technique. You're not going to roll, especially if it's your first week ever of jiu-jitsu. You're probably not going to go anywhere near like, you know, a live partner. I'm just guessing. Maybe some schools do, but I mean, you're the black belt, but I don't think that's a great idea. But
no, we don't do that.
Yeah. So the point is that people say that all the time, like with the gym and stuff, like, oh, I'll hire a trainer when I'm in shape, or when I'm in better. And it's like, I'll
go to school when I'm smart.
Yeah, exactly. That's what that is essentially when that happens, and it doesn't make sense. And it's that's a fear mechanism holding you back. That a good qualified trainer and a good qualified like jiu-jitsu instructor or martial arts instructor will always have you do what you can do.
That's it. You modify it.
Exactly. There's so many guys. I train a lot of men in their 30s and 40s. So many guys come in with back pain, and they almost always fit the same profile. So if they have back pain,
what's the profile? Tell me what the profile is. They
all have tight hips, weak glutes, or or flip it, weak glutes, tight hips. You know what?
Okay.
And they have zero ability to hinge. It's on a spectrum. Like you.
Is this from lifestyle and work?
Probably. Okay. Yeah. That they sit down a lot and this kind of thing. The guys who have corporate jobs that sit, drive, and train jiu-jitsu are the worst. It's literally
kyphosis.
It's kyphosis, and like what we're doing right now, flexed hips always.
Yeah.
You know, so you never have any diversity of movement. So literally, if you can drill a hinging pattern and get people to start hinging better and to start like getting stronger glutes, stronger hip and abductors, make sure that you work their hamstrings. Like this back pain starts to go down. It's not like an overnight fix, but it's something as you do it. And I have a lot of clients that can attest to this, that week after week it gets a little better, it gets a little better, and then you feel like you can do more. And when you feel like you can do more, you get a little happier. When you get a little happier, you're going to start doing even more. And like it's a mental thing. Pain is mental as much as it is physical. So
I heard that.
You know,
I've heard that.
Yeah. So I never want to discount anyone's pain, because it's real. It's coming from something.
Sure.
But there's a great coach. He's now the strength and conditioning coach for the Yankees, which is like 100% deserved, because Eric Cressy is his name. I think he's probably one of the best, like if not the best. He had this post. You don't even have to go back that far if you're listening from the post date of this podcast, where he showed someone's MRI, and I can't remember what he was showing, but he was showing something that was clearly like like in a textbook sense dysfunctional. And he's like, but this client like just won like NCAA like pitcher of the year and has no pain, has never had pain. Like they come in and do XYZ, and he's like MRI, and his point was MRIs are just one piece of the of the puzzle. That, like, you are not your MRI. Like, you are not what the doctor necessarily tells you, because like I know for me, my lower back is actually pretty strong, so I can do things sometimes that I would never have a client do. Like just because I know where I can put load, and I know where I can do things, and where I can hitch on a deadlift, whereas I would tell someone, don't ever fucking do that kind of thing. Like, not saying that I do it a lot. I'm just saying.
That's smart to have a coach.
Yes, exactly. And I have a powerlifting coach. And so like he keeps me honest on these things. So point is that like there is a diversity of things that make your current state up. It's not, it is, yes, sometimes partially your MRI. It's partially how you move. It's partially how you feel, your mental emotional state, how you eat. Like, you know, all these things. How you sleep,
how much water you're drinking.
Yeah, so it's always like, and it's like, they're like race cars. They're always like jockeying for position. Like one will become more important, one will become the leader, one will become the driver, one's the pace car. And then like if you start training a lot, like, and you want to train a lot, your other things have to keep up. So you have to make sure your sleep, your diet, your stress all keeps up, because that training is your stress now. Versus you just opened a gym and you want to keep training that much, you better get that sleep and that other car better come up, you know, like
burn yourself out.
Yeah, or pull one back. And that's what I had to do. It kind of sucked for about 6 months, but the first 6 months that this place was open, jiu-jitsu came back. I couldn't train that much. You know what I mean? It wasn't possible.
You had to be selfish so you could be selfless.
Exactly. There you go.
So you could give back.
Going back to what we were talking about before.
You had to be the best you, so you could give a lot to other people.
Right, exactly.
And that's what like the service industry, as we call it, or whatever, you know, jiu-jitsu, you know, strength and conditioning, or anything, is your cup has to be full. Right. So you can give to others. If your cup is not full, how can you give to others? Right, exactly. Right?
100%. I agree 100%. If you're a coach, I feel like that has to be your sort of primary. Like, you have to be willing to, and I'm not telling you to drop things all the time, but you have to be willing to put your clients first. Like, your athletic career, if that's what's first, you need to make sure that you have clients that kind of either understand that or won't get in the way of it, you know? But that's going to be really hard. It's probably going to be impossible.
I think you're chasing two rabbits at that point.
I kind of agree. That's why it's like, you know, I said to my girlfriend, I don't mean to throw shade at people, but there are some, and I won't even say the sports, there are people who pass themselves off as coaches, but they're phenomenal athletes. I'm not even talking about jiu-jitsu here, so don't think, I'm actually talking about other sports.
Sure, basketball, baseball, tennis.
Yeah, but there are people who are phenomenal current athletes who are coaches. And again, I'm not talking about jiu-jitsu, but I'm sure it applies. But they have they talk about their coaching and they talk about their gym and their whatever, and I'm like, there's literally no way you could be at your gym that much and be that awesome of an athlete. I know this game too well, like, you know what I mean? And I'm not holding that against you. I'm just saying, just be honest with people. I think that's the big thing. This is the bigger overarching question that you were sort of asking about people and when they come to the gym, is like, you have to always remember, it's what's best for you, not like what the social media guy or person is telling you.
Funny.
Like, you have to do what's best for you. Like, your optimal training, I think
people get caught up in that. They see somebody on social media or maybe just everyday life, and they're like, I want to be like that person. Yeah. But that person is not a good person to help you get to where you need to be with your goals. Right. Just because they're fitting the mold of what you like, doesn't mean that person can help you or others around you get to that goal.
Right. They might be a great avatar in some ways. Like somebody that you're like, that would be cool. Like, I admire that. There's a lot of people I admire like that, but I know I can't be like that, you know, and train like that. But I modify it for me. Like, my version of like waking up at like 4 a.m. to train is like, no, it's like my version of doing that is making sure I always train and train hard, and like I'm going to be sleeping until 7:38, and I'm going to be like I'm sorry. I stay up late because that's the nature of training in New York City. You know.
Yeah.
Is that it's a later game. You know, but anyway, that's just something worth saying. With what's right is usually right for you, not
Agreed.
anybody else. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So let's talk about those questions. So we
All
had
right.
some questions from your people.
I'm not gonna answer some of them.
So while Charlie's looking those up,
Somebody asked me about Komodo dragon. Sorry, I'm not gonna. That's for another time. Okay, you can ask me at the studio about that. JR-AC. What books could you recommend for fighters? This is for you.
Okay.
That can aid in lifting, strength and conditioning, and nutrition. So I tagged him with my friend Mike Israel, who owns Renaissance Periodization, for nutrition.
Correct.
What are some books that he could get for lifting and strength and conditioning? What's like one or two books? I know there's probably a million, but what's like the first one that comes to your mind? It's like, you should read this. Or should this person just get a coach?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like back to the two rabbits.
Yeah.
If we're chasing those two rabbits,
Right.
is it sometimes worth our hard-earned money just to get a coach instead of trying to do it ourselves?
I'm glad you said that because here's the problem with books and things for fighting is that fighting besides boxing is like kind of new. And so a lot of strength and conditioning coaches didn't really get involved with fighting until like maybe like the modern era of the UFC.
Okay.
So like, think of like the Brock Lesnar, like that's even like later modern era, like that era. Like, so in other words, what I'm trying to say is that there's not a lot of books that were written specifically about mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu. In the case of jiu-jitsu, there are none. Like
Okay.
I'm trying to write one right now. But
Nice.
but
Get Mark's book.
Yeah, it's not gonna be out for a while. But point is, the MMA books that I could recommend are there are some, but the thing is that most books that can teach you about training effectively for your sport are really dense. And I'm gonna give you the names, so don't worry. I'm not like trying to act all like I know better than you, because I'm going to tell you the names of all of them and then I'll tell you to go read them. And it took me, even as a professional who made my living from this, a few years to understand these books because they're very dense and how to apply them. And they do work, but to your point, you could also...
After you do, when you say the books, I'm going to record you on the Instagram.
Yeah. So you could have also at the same time, I'll give you warning, don't worry. You could also hire a coach who understands these things, and if you are an inquisitive trainee, you could go to that coach and say, hey, I want to be a better fighter. I need to be stronger. I need to be able to repeat these hard efforts a little better, et cetera, et cetera. Need a better gas tank. Would you mind explaining to me along the way, like kind of how this works? And if they're like a coach that doesn't want to do that, they're probably not a great fit for you anyway.
Sure.
So don't hire them.
Sure.
But if you want to be a better fighter, you should probably hire somebody to help you because it'll happen faster. Because if it's going to take you like 3 years to understand some of these books and a lot of
the
trial
learning
and error,
curve, right?
Yeah. Or you could hire a coach who will figure it out for you inside of 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
So
also,
true.
I'm a very slow learner, so the 3-year thing might be like more specific to me. But anyway, these books that you could look at, one is Lauren Landau's book.
Hold up.
Sure, no problem.
Let's see.
I can't remember the name of it
Yeah.
exactly.
Let me see. Go ahead.
So one of them is Lauren Landau's book. He was one of the first really great strength and conditioning coaches to be approached by MMA fighters to say, hey, can you make me a program? I don't remember the name of it. It's called something like Ultimate MMA Conditioning or something like that, or Strength Training. Lauren Landau's the author. The other one is anything written by Louis Simmons and Westside Barbell in the realm of sport development, not powerlifting. Now those are going to be the books that are dense because like Louis is like kind of somewhat of a genius, and like the way he writes is how he talks, and if you've heard how he talks, it's very fast, it's a lot of information, and you're going to have to start to learn to understand biomechanics, biology. You're going to have to understand things that took me a long time to understand and learn to apply to the training. So like the one I have on the desk right here, Westside Barbell Speed and Strength Development for All Sports. Another really great book to help you sort of understand all phases of movement is Triphasic Training by Cal Dietz. Now that was written more for traditional sports where your feet are on the ground. So great for MMA fighters, but for jiu-jitsu, you're going to need to twist your mind a little to figure out, okay, which of these movement phases is most important? You know, these are all things I'm working on too. So in other words, the point is that some of these books that are out there that I like and draw a lot from, they don't really necessarily always, there's no answer. It's like, that's going to be best for you. Sure. You're going to have to find the one that's best for you. It's not like, hey,
it's not cut and dry.
You're going to be a purple belt or a brown belt if you do this for 6 months, or you're going to win this tournament. Like, they don't exist. Even MMA doesn't exist. The reason I like Lauren Landau's book is because I think it's really easy to understand. Mm-hmm. It's very, all the exercises he chose are like very simple. They're not like, there's not like a high degree of like technical proficiency to do them. And if you've never worked out that way before, you'll notice that you did something good. So that's my long answer for the books. But I would say also, if you want to do it quickly, hire a coach who you know is good and will take time to explain to you, like what's going on.
I think that's
and their reading list, they'll tell you theirs. Those are mine. That's like things I like. If Steve had a book, I would have listed it. Another book, mentioning Paul Chek again. Mm-hmm. I've recommended Paul Chek, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. This book, I've recommended that book to more coaches than probably any book. Most people, when I ask them and I follow up like a few months later, did you like the book or whatever? They'll be like, yeah, it was cool. I just wasn't 100% sure how it applies. But that book is like a huge guide for how you kind of keep all systems operational. There's no answer in it about like, this is the best barbell workout, this is the best whatever. It's like, it's a matrix of how, like, if it's a lot of if-thens. Like, if this is not working, you might want to consider this.
Sure.
It's application. I get asked this question a lot, and people like just like ghost me on responses. Yeah. Like, because I don't think they like my answer, because there is no great book. Like, all those books I listed are great. A lot of books are great.
It's a complicated question.
But it's a complicated question because there's no book that's been specifically written for that.
Sure. Same thing with jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
How do I get from my white belt to my black belt?
Yeah.
I don't know. How old are you? How many days a week do you train? How many injuries do you have?
Yeah.
Are you dedicated? Where do you train at?
Yeah.
And what's honestly, the curriculum?
The dirty secret about a lot of this too is that most things are not like so cut and dry. Like they're not so different either. Like training for jiu-jitsu and training for all these other sports, like as a strength and conditioning coach, it doesn't matter what sport you play. If you walk in here and your gait's fucked up and I see that your posture's weird, I'm going to work on that first. Yeah. Like, I don't care what sport you play. I just want to make sure you walk right and you stand up straight. Like, it doesn't matter what sport you play. It's, that now, if you are a lineman in the NFL, I need to make sure that your bench press and certain other numbers are like in the realm of what we know are the norms of that sport. Oh, yeah. But like,
no cut and dry answer.
It's tough. But also what I was trying to say is that a lot of this is a lot of smoke and mirrors sometimes too. But it works because people want to be told this is how you do it. And honestly, if you find a trustworthy person and they're like, this is going to help your jiu-jitsu, and they just write you a solid program, even if it was the same solid program they would have given to a baseball player, if you got stronger, if you got bigger, you got faster, and you did it with intent, like, I'm gonna get better at jiu-jitsu, your jiu-jitsu got better. You got better as an athlete.
Isn't that what you wanted?
Yeah, that's what you wanted. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we try to make things complicated sometimes, but they're really not,
It's a good question.
Yeah. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, of course. All right. So one of the other questions from my jiu-jitsu coach, Rick Migliarese, who hits harder, Phil or me? I'm assuming he's talking about like MMA sparring. So I boxed with both of them. Okay. And I did mixed martial arts with both of them. And I think that we always think like, oh, 5th degree black belt, 6th degree black belt. They're both world champions in jiu-jitsu too. Right. We're always like, yeah, jiu-jitsu. Phil and Rick have a boxing background, I think even before they did jiu-jitsu. Right. And I'll be honest, Rick has just as good stand-up as he does jiu-jitsu. Wow. And I would not want to get hit by him any day. I might have to say Ricky has a little bit harder of a hit.
Oh, okay.
But I have seen him knock people out ice cold.
Really?
Ice cold.
Oh, wow.
Ice cold. Dude, ice cold. I would not want to get in a fight with him. His hands are like a lunchbox. They're like two of my fists.
Oh my God.
And he really, like, when I've been doing stand-up for a long time. I promise you, he really knows how to do stand-up.
Yeah.
So before you interact with him on a not so good level, you better think twice.
Right.
You can end up blacked out. Not from getting choked, but like getting your something broken in here.
Brain scrambled, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it plenty of times. Guys would come into the gym. This is a long time ago. Guys would come into the gym and, try to like challenge one of them. They'd ask them to leave and they're like, no. And kind of escalates a little bit. So nobody wants to do that.
No, of course not. I wouldn't.
It hasn't happened in a long time. It happened one time when I was there. I mean, this person just was not a good. I don't even think he was going hard on the dude. You just caught him just right.
Yeah, Steve's told me lots of stories about people who would come in and do those challenges. That was
so. Did Steve ever tell you the story? Phil told me the story the other day. When Steve had his place,
right?
Guys would come in.
Yeah.
Steve was Rick and Phil's first jiu-jitsu.
I remember you've told me about this.
First jiu-jitsu instructor.
Right.
Guys would literally come in and say, "I want the challenge match." I don't know if it was Ricky or Phil or maybe somebody else at the gym. This guy came in. He was a wrestler. I guess he wrestled in college or something. I don't know. But he goes, "I won a challenge match." So, Steve's like, "All right, XYZ, come on up. Let's go." Like, challenge, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Challenge match.
Yeah.
The guy's like, "All right." So they both get on the mat.
Right.
There's no gloves. There's no shoes. There's no socks. The other guy, I think, maybe had his shirt off and he had his gi pants. And he goes, "All right, you ready?" And the guy goes, "I'm ready." So the guy gets in a wrestling stance and he kind of like gets low and he puts his hands like a wrestling stance. The guy that he was facing was like in like a stand, like a fighting stance. He ran up to him, grabbed him by the back of the head and kneed him in his face twice, hard.
The guy that came in did this.
He got kneed in the face.
Okay,
because he was so low, like a wrestler. So the guy ran over him, just like boom, boom, kneed the guy in the face. The guy was knocked out. His nose was bleeding everywhere. It was like on the side of his face. They finally got the guy up, and they're like, "Dude, what were you doing?" He goes, "I don't know." He goes, "I wasn't ready." He goes, "Well, this was a challenge match. It wasn't a wrestling match.
Yeah.
It's a fight. It's a full fight.
Right.
Anything goes." And the guy was just like, that was it. He just laughed. He just laughed. That was it.
Oh my God.
And Phil was like, "I'll never forget. There was blood just like everywhere."
Ugh.
So like those were like the early days of like the Gracie challenge matches.
Yeah, that was what Steve would always tell me, is that people would come in and like at first he would always say to them, "No, the Gracie challenge is that you have to go beat one of the Gracies, not us. Like we're just a Gracie training center," and people would still insist.
Oh no, Philly man, that's a hard move there, bro.
Exactly, like they would insist.
Like, "No, I want to fight."
Steve was like, "All right," and
All right.
yeah, and the other thing about Steve too, he's mentioned this a lot, and he's probably said this on a lot of podcasts and interviews too, is that was how he was treated when he trained with like Hoyler and all these other guys.
Yeah.
Like he would be like in the posse, and then people would come challenge like Hoyler,
and Steve would have to fight.
And he thought that they would put like Hoist or somebody else.
No, they had blue belts. The lower belts have to fight.
Yeah. So they put Steve in, or they put like whoever else was with him in, and that was why he was like that, and so. And it all it's a repeating cycle.
I haven't had that in quite some time. I did have an issue in my last studio that I was at. A guy came in, and he really wanted to, and I did everything to get him out. To be like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there that doubt the MMA. Let's just call it MMA. Let's just not even call it like just jiu-jitsu. Let's just call it MMA. They doubt that it can happen to them.
Right.
And I think honestly, you go to any jiu-jitsu school. It doesn't even have to be like a certified this or that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you get some guy off the street, a blue belt's gonna tear him up.
Yeah.
Like 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is that once the guy who knows jiu-jitsu or MMA figures out the pace of the fight, a lot of times it's over. Like you might
hit the ground and the blue belt gets on top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's gonna be hard for the other guy to bump him off.
Yeah, I remember one time I was actually like a newish blue belt at the time, and I was traveling. I wasn't with Steve. I was with a friend, but I can't remember the exact specifics. I'm also saying this to protect anonymity.
Sure.
But anyway, we went to this Krav Maga school because that was where they had mats and where we could train.
Okay.
And one of the guys, they were being a little like, they're like, yeah, we put jiu-jitsu in our training or whatever. And they're like, do you want to spar? And we were like, and the guy was with his brown belt, and he's like, well, do you want to spar jiu-jitsu, or are you gonna like have strikes, or are you gonna have like,
what are we doing?
What are we doing here? And he was like, yeah, like, why don't we put gloves on, but not like, no one's gonna be like, head hunting. And I was like, all right. And so he's like, you go first, Mark. And I was like, all right. I was like, all right, whatever. And so the guy, like, he comes out and he's swinging a lot, but it looked like all of a sudden I just went to the Gracie Combatives. Mm-hmm. It looked like a Gracie Combative. Like, the guy clearly hadn't trained honestly all that much in striking, too much. And it was literally just like what Steve used to call the barkeeper's headlock. Huh? Like, I kind of went for like a sloppy double. Like, he had that. We did the reversal. I ended up in mount. I ended up like with him. What do you call it? He had me in the barkeeper. This one. Yeah. That one. And so
headlock. Like trying to punch you.
Yeah. Tripped him. Stepped over. Pushed his face down. Armbar. It was just like
textbook.
It was textbook, and I was like, wow. And it was all instinct. Yeah. And like I said, he wasn't the best trained. I was a new blue belt, but that was what I was struck by, is that I was a little taken by the moment. Mm-hmm. But once I realized what I was doing in the game I was playing, I was like, oh no, I'm fine. So that's what I mean. Is sometimes you see those videos of like blue or purple belts kind of getting pummeled on the street by like someone being an asshole.
Sure.
And they take a few good licks, but once they realize, oh, this is the game we're playing, once you're on the ground, they're like, oh, this is familiar, the instinct.
It's always situational.
It's very situational.
It's always situational.
And so that was how that happened. I was like, oh, wow, so this stuff does work.
The best defense is to not fight.
Exactly.
Steve talks about it too.
100%.
Rick and Phil do, and I stand true to it right now.
Yeah.
You don't want to be. Why would you want an altercation with somebody? Mm-hmm. Unless it's like life or death.
Right.
Is it really worth it?
Right. No.
Is it really worth? Just no.
No, leave.
If you really want to do altercations, this is my thing. This is like on the same thing but kind of separate. Like, if you want to have real physical confrontation and have like that feel of being in a fight, go do MMA.
Right.
Don't do just jiu-jitsu. Don't do just kickboxing. Go do MMA. You can do a jiu-jitsu match, and then you can do a kickboxing match, and if you still like it, which I always tell my guys to do first before they do MMA fights, I make them do a jiu-jitsu match and or a smoker kickboxing match.
Right.
Because they might do it one time, but like, you know what?
Right.
I did not like that.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Then we're not going to go to the next step, because I promise you're not going to like that. If you didn't like that, you're not going to like this.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Just go do MMA.
Yeah.
What's realer than that? I mean, what's more adrenaline pumping than knowing that you're going to fight somebody who's the same weight as you, who hopefully the same skill set, and you guys are just gonna have that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you'll learn too really fast. Like I learned when I was 18 I didn't want to box because I went to a gym in Boston and I got punched in the head and I was like, I don't like being hit in the face.
You know what? I'm gonna pass on this.
I'm good with this. I respect the hell out of you guys. I love the sport. I love MMA. I love striking. I love watching it. I watch a ton of it. But not for me.
I had like the opposite. When I was like 13 or 14, I was like, I got hit a couple times. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what you got. Let's do it again. Yeah. Now I'm gonna see if I can miss it, and I'm gonna like try to put a hole in your head. Mm-hmm. So it was like I had like a different. But then eventually I got older and I was just like, you know what? I really don't enjoy getting crushed hard. Like, I'll play around, we'll do play sparring and stuff, but I don't spar like super hard anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it was the concussions being younger, like, and that kind of thing.
Dude, listen, some people just don't like it.
Yeah.
Some people just don't.
I just didn't like it. Yeah.
Just like some people don't like grappling.
Yeah, totally. I've met a lot of them, and they have perfectly legitimate reasons, and I don't think they're not being like wimps or anything.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for them. Yeah. Well, I know you have to go soon. Is there any other
man,
questions?
I gotta roll.
Yeah. Or any other ones you want to get to, or is that it?
No, wait, let me see if there's one more that I
appreciate you taking so much time.
That I really liked. Somebody wrote to me in Russian. I can't read that. Master Kung Fu and other styles. I don't know what that means, Greg.
If you're gonna write in another language, you should probably translate it because we definitely we would love to answer, but.
What is your favorite childhood memory? Oh, that was pretty cool. Boy, they make me really go. I'm gonna say this statement really quick because I don't think a lot of people know this. I found this out through a professor at Princeton University who was talking to my dad at like some doctor's office or something. He was like, "Attention, everybody!" My dad was like, "Oh my God, who's this wacko?"
Yeah.
And he was like, I want everybody here to think about their earliest childhood memory. Go ahead, go." And then everybody kind of like was like, one lady like started talking, then another person said it, and then my dad thought about it like in his mind. I think he said something too. And then he said, "How old were you?" Mm-hmm. And everybody said they were about 3 or 4. Supposedly, I could be wrong, you can't remember past that time.
Right.
Something cognitively happens where you only start remembering after like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So my dad had asked me about it, and my mom, and then I was like, one of the best childhood memories, and it's not the one, but it is one, is when we first got the dog that we had at the time. And there was all these puppies around, and the one that I picked out came to me, and then we went home with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, "How old was it?" And my mom was like, "I swear, I think you were only about 3. I don't know how you remembered that."
Yeah.
And I told her where it was and what was happening and what the landscape looked like and who the people were. We were on a farm, and it was out in PA, and there was a bunch of puppies, and they let them out of this like tent bin thing, and they all came up to me, and she was like, "I don't know how you remembered that." So she goes, "I barely remember that. How do you remember that?"
Right. That's crazy.
So that was one of my favorite childhood memories.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm thinking back that there's been memories I've had that were real, like I was really young, and I was the same thing.
How young?
At least 4, but maybe
4?
before. Like,
see?
because I actually have very vivid memories of this preschool I went to. So like, how old are you in preschool?
Good experience or bad?
Good. Just good.
Cool.
Like, no, just like going, liking it. Like there was a cool playground. Like,
Can't forget that playground.
Yeah, exactly. They had a fire truck. Like it was like for kids, that kind of thing. Like I remember liking all that stuff. Yeah, but it was all good memories. But like, yeah, you had to be 3 or 4 about then. That's before kindergarten.
Yep.
So I remember doing that. It was north of Pittsburgh. It was like a real beautiful part of town. Like I can remember that. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, if I had one, I mean, I had a good childhood, so there were a lot. I used to my dad taught me how to, I was a little older probably at this point, meaning like still under 10, but a little older. My dad, he played football in high school and college, was a quarterback and then switched to safety. But he taught me how to run routes when I was like 8 years old.
Teach you
how to run routes, like as a receiver
cool.
would, And I never played football, but I learned a lot about it from him because he was really good and he understood the game really well. And I ended up playing hockey, but I really liked going in the backyard with my dad, and he taught me how to run routes, like counting your steps, when to turn and look, when not to turn and look, and trusting that the ball's going to come to you. The
connection.
The connection between the quarterback and the receiver and that kind of thing. So he taught me about like that stuff, the intuition of it all. So it was cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that was that. That's the first we're talking about. I mean, it's biased. We're in a gym. We're talking about athletics. That's a happy memory. That's a cool one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Well, Charlie, thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
We've spent the whole day together, so I'll miss you when you leave. But
I'll come back.
You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
There's a lot we could talk about. I actually almost felt overwhelmed because there's so many questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
And I think that we only got to the half of it.
We'll do it on the next one. Thanks for bringing me to Marcelo's.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And thanks for the training there.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll do a second one. Either you can come to me or I'll come back and we'll do another one.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, definitely. I know there's a lot of people who like to hear about more business related stuff, so we'll get into that next time.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to be having a coaching business, like a life coach that's business.
That you're going to be running.
Yeah, that I'm going to run.
Awesome.
That people can consult with me personally. So I have Instagram.
Okay.
And my name on Instagram is Charlie Vinch.
Yes, I was going to say.
Go figure.
Yeah, exactly. Just search Charlie Vinch.
And I'll have a link tree up there about, what I'm going to be doing. So to make it, very easy for people to think about is I'm going to show people what I've learned and from the coaches that I've, been coached by.
Right.
And how to get their life in the direction of where they want to be going.
Right.
So how to structure their day, how to think about things, how to chunk time.
Right.
All of those things all matter when you want to do something different. And I had the pleasure of working with so many coaches and coaches now. I'm still coached now by everybody. Diet, my business, jiu-jitsu, like I still have coaches for all this stuff.
Right.
Because I respect and like who they are. And I highly suggest that people want to, go to the next level. You need a coach.
Yeah, definitely.
And knowing how to do it.
Right.
We talked about those circles today, like what you know and like what you don't know.
Yeah.
The coach will help you realize what you don't know.
Right.
And point you in the direction you never thought that was even possible.
Definitely.
You need to be coached by somebody who's been there and done that.
Absolutely.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I didn't say this earlier, but I would definitely add this in an intro when I do record it, is that you were somebody who was very helpful to me, both on a personal and business level, when I was like transitioning into having a full gym and transitioning from, being a trainer that was kind of multi-location, and just, as someone who had been there, but also very similar interests. Like we have a lot of intersecting interests, whether it's martial arts, strength and conditioning, and just the way you think about business was always really helpful for me to have you in my network, to be able to just call up, have you as a friend. So
awesome, man.
I can attest to, I'm sure that will be a success, and that people should check that out if that's something they're interested in, because I'm not just saying that because I like you. It's you always made me think about things in a very clear way. When you would when I would tell you the problem, you would always reverse it and make me ask better questions about what was going on.
It's all about that.
Yes.
Better questions.
Yes, exactly.
You have to ask yourself better questions.
It's true. It's 100% true, and I think you were among the people that always made me realize that. So
Tony Robbins made me realize it.
Oh, cool.
Because I've been to a ton of his events.
Right.
And I've gotten coaching from people who are under his coaching.
Right. Awesome. That's amazing.
And so it's always going in cycles.
Right.
Of coaches with coaches.
Right.
I'm being coached by somebody where I want to be.
Right.
That's who I'm being coached by. I'm being coached by somebody where I want to be, where they're at.
Right. Exactly.
And they're good at coaching.
Right.
And I respect them.
Yes.
And I enjoy their energy. And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
How do you train and get coached by somebody if you don't enjoy their energy and respect who they are as a person? Like, coaching is results, but if you don't respect that person and you don't enjoy being around that person, how long are you actually going to be around that person for?
Right.
You might do it for a year.
Exactly.
Maybe 2, and then eventually you're going to be like,
right.
I'm getting the results, but like I don't enjoy even being around this person or talking with this person.
Yeah.
Why do I want to continue?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I know you have the train, so I'm going to let you.
All right,
we'll get out of here on this one, but because we could talk a lot about that. But next time, thank you again, Charlie. Take care, everybody.